Chris Mannix, senior NBA writer, joining us on the program. Is Joel Embiid got hurt? I guess he was working out for the Cavaliers, or they just discovered it then. But give me the timeline here for Joel Embiid, and is anybody going to take a chance on him in the top 3 picks?
Well, it obviously varies, Dan, with everyone that undergoes this procedure. But I interviewed 3 doctors yesterday, orthopedic surgeons, who all said that the average timeline, it's 4 to 6 months to get back onto the floor and to resume basketball activities, and usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 months before you're playing again. So we're talking about potentially sacrificing all of next season. Again, everyone's different. He's 20 years old. His body could heal at a faster rate, but these doctors told me the general sense was that was the average timetable. Now, who drafts him? I don't think the teams in the top 3 will draft him. Milwaukee and Cleveland are kind of in a win-now mode. Cleveland because of their owner. Milwaukee, John Hammond is the GM there, but there's new ownership there that wants to see results right away. Philadelphia, you'd think, would be a possibility, but you have to remember Sam Hinkie, the GM there, he was the assistant GM in Houston when Yao Ming went through all these problems with a very similar injury. So you have to wonder if he'd be reluctant to pull the trigger on another player with that injury. But I don't think he falls any farther than number 6. I think 4 through 6 are still possibilities because Boston at 6 with Danny Ainge there, I just think this is exactly the type of player that Ainge, who's in the middle of a long-term rebuilding process, would scoop up and take a chance on.
Okay, speaking of the Celtics, Steve Bulpett of the Boston Herald said that if the Celtics don't get Kevin Love, that they'll likely trade Rondo. What do you think?
Well, that's a stronger possibility because they're not going to win next year. And Rondo wants to play for a winner, and this team is not going to give him the kind of money he wants when his contract comes up at the end of the deal. And there's a lot of teams that are going to want Rondo. So I think that it's not just restricted to Kevin Love. I think that the better way to phrase it would be if they don't make some kind of move to make them instant playoff contenders next year, then it's more likely than not for the trade deadline that they try to move Rondo.
Does it feel close, Golden State, Minnesota, with Kevin Love?
It feels close, and I was checking in with somebody out in Golden State yesterday, and they feel that they're moving closer to the framework of a deal. The draft picks is where they're getting kind of hung up on right now. Minnesota wants a future draft pick. Golden State, and somewhat justifiably, feels like they're giving up a lot already in a future star in Klay Thompson. David Lee is a pretty good player in his own right. They don't want to throw in another draft pick on top of that. I think there'll be some haggling, Dan, but the fact that Klay Thompson's in this deal, and he's 24 years old, an 18-point-per-game scorer, who is just learning how to post up right now at his position, I think that's going to make any other offer out there too much for anyone to match to Minnesota.
Is Love worth this?
Yeah, for a team like Golden State, look, you're not bringing back David Lee anyway, so that's just a salary dump. So now you're talking about Klay Thompson versus Kevin Love. And playing that position and being the player that Kevin Love is, I think he's a better player. I think Klay's a very good player, and I think he might even be a franchise player, but I think Kevin Love in this spot's perfect. Remember, one of the things that scouts tell me why Kevin would be a great fit in Golden State, Kevin's weaknesses defensively would be masked somewhat playing alongside a guy like Andrew Bogut. Everyone I've ever talked to says that Kevin needs to play alongside a strong defensive center. And when Bogut's healthy, and granted that's been iffy over the last couple of years, but when he's healthy, he's an elite defensive center. So I think it's just a round peg, round hole kind of fit with Kevin Love in Golden State.
I also wanted to get back to Embiid just for the last 30 seconds, that he's not going number 1 now to Cleveland. How does this affect the draft with Embiid dropping to, you say, 4 to 6?
Everyone kind of moves up, Dan, but the biggest guy this might affect, and I can't believe I'm saying this again on your show because you're going to slam me for it.
Oh, don't even Dante Exum.
Dante Exum could jump up into that number 1 overall pick spot, Dan. Save the tape.
He's your Ricky Rubio. Oh, Dante Exum.
Save the tape, Dan. Save this tape. Dante Exum could go number 1 overall.
Okay, but I saved the tape of all the silly things you said about Ricky Rubio.
Yes, and the Spanish national team from 2008. I've been coming on the show for too long.
Have a good weekend, Chris.
All right, Dan.
Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated.